Hello YouTube and preppers, this is the Comms Prepper, and this video is the first video of a new playlist I'm going to create here on the channel about the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network, or AREDN. Recently I started playing with AREDN radio units. They're reflashed Ubiquity radios, and if you look at my channel you can see some previous videos I've done on that. And right now I have a few of these AREDN nodes up and running. I purchased some Voice over Internet Protocol or VoIP phones, and I had been connecting those phones to my nodes and dialing and placing phone calls between the nodes using the IP addresses. Then I became aware of a private branch exchange software that you can load on a Raspberry Pi that gives you the full functionality of a regular telephone switch, allowing you to assign extensions, have voicemail, forward calls, do conference calls, and that's what I've been working on. The learning curve has been very difficult for me, so I decided to make a video on this. There's some assumptions in this video that you've already purchased a Raspberry Pi 3. I bought a Model B+. I think it was $65 off of Amazon, and it came with a case, a power supply, and the correct SD card. Of course, you have a node for the AREDN system. It's a modified radio for the amateur radio bands that allows you to connect your phone and the Raspberry Pi, and that your node has access to the internet through a VLAN managed switch or some sort of gateway. The first web page I have up here is the AREDN page, so you can see the URL. This is where you can get a lot of information if you want to start getting into the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network. And this is a high-speed data network. This is really neat stuff, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. The phones that I purchased are Grandstream 1625 phones. I think they were $45 off of Amazon. I bought two. And there's also an app you can load onto your smartphone device. I believe it's called LIN-Phone, L-I-N phone. That is a Voice over Internet Protocol phone application that can also connect to your nodes via an access point, and it's compatible with the Raspberry Pi and the Asterisk PBX software that we're about to load. This is what a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus looks like. It's about the size of a pack of cigarettes. Again, I paid about $65 on Amazon for the board, the card, the power supply, the case, everything included. We have to download 3 files or programs. Of course, the first thing you want to download is the actual software for the Asterisk PBX software that you load on a Raspberry Pi. You come to the download page, scroll down, and you'll see different options. I did the zip file. I've already unzipped it and put the image on my desktop. You'll want a program called Win32 Disk Imager. I know there's other programs out there. This is the one that I use. You can download this from SourceForge. And the final program is called PuTTY, which will allow us to access the PBX program on the Raspberry Pi once it's installed and we put the SD card into the Raspberry Pi. So the first thing we're going to want to do is put our SD card into our computer, and I like to do an initial format on the card to make sure everything's clean. So I'm going to click that drive or that SD card and do a quick format. And this lets me know that the card is clean and it's working correctly. We'll go ahead and close that out. Our next step is to load this image, or the PBX software, the Asterisk software, onto the SD card on our laptop computer or desktop computer. And once this is done, then we're going to move that SD card over to the Raspberry Pi and continue with the configuration and installation. So I'm going to open up Win32 Disk Imager. I'm going to browse to my desktop and find that file. I'm going to select the device I'm going to load it on, which is drive E, and click write. Now this will destroy anything else you have in the SD card, so make sure you're not overwriting some important documents or things like that. And we'll let this go through the process, and I'll go ahead and pause here and let this do a fast forward action. Alright, that took almost 4 minutes to move the image from the desktop onto the SD card. So we're going to go ahead and exit out of Win32 disk image. It's going to prompt you to format that card again. Do not format it, just hit cancel. And now we want to safely eject the card from the desktop or laptop computer so we can move it over to the Raspberry Pi and continue with our project. Now before I transition to the next step of this video, there's some assumptions here. In my configuration, my Raspberry Pi is connected to my AREDN node on a managed switch. My laptop is also connected to the same switch, and the managed switch has a VLAN or a gateway port that goes out to the internet. So my laptop, the Pi, my phones, and my node are all in the same network subnet, and there's access to the internet because you're going to need access to the internet to go out and get the updates for the Asterisk software on the Raspberry Pi. So you can't do this in separate standalone components. The PC or laptop that's going to do the updating has to be able to access the Pi, and everything else has to be able to access the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the card now from my laptop and transition over to the Raspberry Pi and get that all set up, and we'll continue with the baseline installation of Asterisk PBX on a Raspberry Pi. And the ultimate goal in follow-on videos is to get N2MH's MeshPhone software loaded onto your Pi so that your Raspberry Pi better integrates to the AREDN mesh radio network. So we'll go ahead and close this out. I'm going to remove this drive from the side of the computer, pause the video, get everything set up on the Raspberry Pi, and we'll continue with this video. We'll be right back. Okay, we're ready for the next step now. Again, the laptop's connected to the same switch that the Raspberry Pi is connected to, and my AREDN node is also connected to the same switch, so we're all on the same subnet, and that switch has a VLAN port that goes out to the internet. So the first thing I want to do is keep some housekeeping. So I'm going to go to my node and assign a name to the new PBX. And I already have a link here to my node. I'm going to come into the setup page, my username and password. It gives me access to the setup page. And you'll see here in the DHCP information that I now have a connection from a device called Raspberry-PBX. And it shows up here as well as Raspberry-PBX. It's recommended that you go ahead and ensure that your call sign precedes all the peripherals connected to your node or nodes so things don't get confused across the network. So I'm going to go ahead and put my call sign in. In your case, this would be your call sign. And I'm going to go ahead and save the changes. So now every time that my PBX or Raspberry Pi connects to this node and pulls a DHCP address, it'll always have this name associated with it. And this is important. I'll show you if you come over here to node status and then mesh status. Anybody who looks at my system will see that all my peripherals here start with my call sign name here. My connection to the mesh, because I'm down in Bolivia, is not by radio, is actually using a tunnel. So I'm going to refresh this page real quick here. So I have a tunnel from Bolivia going up to the States, and accessing that tunnel allows me to see every node that this station can see. So you can see a lot of the other people on the network have done the same thing, as they're using their call sign to precede all the peripherals they're connecting to the network. So that's just some basic housekeeping. We'll go ahead and close out of that. Oh, something I did forget. You want to get the IP address while you're in there. So we'll go back to the mesh node. Go to setup. Hit OK. Go to DHCP. And the IP address that was assigned by the node is 10.109.122.2. Now we're going to be able to use PuTTY. We're going to come into PuTTY and use 10.109.122.2. and access the Pi or the Asterisk software on the Raspberry Pi. The default username and password, default name is root. The password is Raspberry. You don't want to leave this like this, so the first thing I recommend doing is typing in the password change command, which is PASSWD, and enter a new password. Because if somebody else comes through the network intentionally or accidentally, gets on your Pi and starts loading the defaults, they could actually access your PBX and cause some problems. I'm going to go ahead and hit clear here. I'll go ahead and close PuTTY and we'll re-access the system. Make sure that password took. Put the default username as root, my new password, and I'm into the system. So the next thing we're going to do is update the Raspberry PBX Asterisk software on your Raspberry Pi. This is going to take a while, so I'm going to do some fast forwarding here, but we'll get it started. You want to enter the command raspberry-upgrade and hit enter. And again, this could take up to 40 minutes, and I'm not going to make you sit through all this. At critical points, I'll come back to the video. We don't want to make this video too long. So I'm going to go ahead and pause everything right now and let this complete. There are some prompts where you have to say yes to continue, hit yes to continue, and get the updates done. Alright, the updates are now completed through the PuTTY application. Now I'm going to go ahead and reboot the Raspberry Pi or the Asterisk software on the Pi and go ahead with the next steps. Note I want to add here, there is a Windows GUI interface for Asterisk PBX that I'm going to show you a little bit later, but there's no reboot or reset option. So I actually put some of the commands here in a notepad. You can only do a reboot from within PuTTY. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, come over here, paste it in, hit enter, and now I'm going to reload the core, or do a core reload command, and this is going to reboot the entire system on the Raspberry Pi. Then I'll go ahead and type exit, and now I'm actually going to exit out of PuTTY, and we're going to go ahead and re-enter the Raspberry Pi through PuTTY, because there's a few more things we got to do. Go ahead and log in with our username and new password, and we're going to go ahead and install fail to ban. And this is a security program. I haven't set this up completely, but doing research, it's always been recommended to go ahead and install this, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm not going to enter an email address. And again, this is going to go out over the internet and download this package and install it onto the Raspberry Pi within the Asterisk software. And this downloads pretty quick. And then the last thing we're going to do is actually set the time zone. We'll continue with the prompts. And that's complete, and there's actually some instructions here. I have to do some more research on this. We'll go ahead and we'll click exit. We'll go back in through the PuTTY. And the last thing we want to do is the time zone. For now. Then we're going to roll over to the GUI interface and actually update modules. So we're going to configure dash time zone, and it takes a little bit to find it because I'm down in La Paz, Bolivia, so I got to go up to just America, and then I slowly got to scroll down here and find La Paz, and I always seem to skip it. So I'll go very slow. I know it's in here. There it is. So now my time zone is set. I'm going to hit exit. And for now we're done with PuTTY. And we're going to go into the GUI interface and set a username and a password. And start doing the GUI updates. We're going to put the default username and password in. Actually, now you actually set it. So I'm going to just do admin. For now, it makes you put an email address. Email at blah 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 blah.com and create an account. We're going to go into free PBX administration. Put that admin in. And it should boot up for us. Oh, got one more setting here. I got to find La Paz again. There it is. Hit submit. It's booting up. We've got some warnings here. We're going to go into administration, updates, and now we're going to update modules. Now I haven't found a list that gives a sequential recommendation of which updates to do. I've tried to update everything at once because that's an option, and it crashes. So I go in and do them one at a time. I think the most critical ones that need to be done are the framework and the core. So I try to get those done first. I think what I'll do first is I'll do the core first. Download and upgrade and hit process. And then I'll go back and do the framework. Okay, the core cannot be upgraded. So we're going to hit cancel. So maybe I need to do the framework first and then do the core. So we'll come in here to do the framework, download and upgrade, hit process, confirm, and it seems to be working. So once I get the framework and the core done, then I just go through and I do each one. I won't make you sit through all those, but we'll do these first two in the video and then we'll fast forward ahead when they're all done. And this actually will take you to version 14.0.5.25, which doesn't mean much now, but when we get into the next video and how to overlay N2MH's MeshPBX, then you'll see why that version is important. Okay, an example I didn't want to have in the video, but here you see there was a crash. So something went wrong and it didn't load, so we're going to go ahead and close out of the browser, go back in, and try again. At least you know what a crash looks like now. And it's going to be delayed because I actually think it's actually going to reboot. Again, this is going back to, I don't know which ones need to be done sequentially, but this has happened more than once to me. And I just kind of have to work around it and pick different ones to install, and then in the end you finally get it. Okay, we're going to go to updates, module updates, check online. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those big ones alone. So we'll start with backup and restore. We'll do that one. Process, confirm, It's done. We'll hit return. I'll go back to check online. Certificate manager, I'll go ahead and do that one. Process. And if any of you are familiar with this, maybe you can explain why I got that crash and how that can be avoided in the comment section. We'll go back and check online. Custom applications. Download and upgrade. Process. Confirm we're going to update that. It's done. Check online. User management. Let's try that one. Oh no, you know what? Let's go back and try the framework again. Maybe it won't crash again. This one takes a little bit. And it actually works. So I wonder if there's a dependency in this update with the certificates. And this could take probably 20-30 minutes to go through each one of these things. So I'm not going to suck up 30 minutes of your time here on the video. I do want to do the core, and then I'll go ahead and pause the video and finish everything offline and come back and show you a fully updated system. And that'll be the end of this video, and that'll give you a baseline Asterisk PBX installation on a Raspberry Pi, and then you'll be ready to proceed to loading N2MH's MeshPhone software and files on top of this installation. So the core loaded okay. There's probably 10 more things I need to update, so I'm going to pause the video, get them done, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I skipped through the boring part here and finished all the updates, and as you can see, everything is enabled and updated. Nothing is in red. So this system is a nice clean baseline installation of Asterisk Raspberry PBX installed on a Raspberry Pi 3 B+, and this unit is now ready to proceed to the next step, which will be the topic of the next video, on how to start the process of installing N2MH's MeshPhone software and files on top of this installation. And as always, thank you for watching my videos and subscribing to my channel. This has been the Comms Prepper, taking a stab of showing people how to install free PBX or Asterisk PBX on a Raspberry Pi, getting it ready for the AREDN data radio system or mesh radio. Thanks for watching, everybody.